where not just women are in danger, but all marginalized people, where being uniquely different right now might truly be considered a crime. It seems as though we had all slipped into a false sense of comfort, that justice would prevail and that good would win in the end. Well, good did not win this election, but good will win in the end. So what today means is that we are far from the end. Today marks the beginning of our story. The revolution starts here. The fight for the right to be free, to be who we are, to be equal. Let's march together through this darkness, and with each step, know that we are not afraid. That we are not alone. That we will not back down. That there is power in our unity, and that no opposing force stands a chance in the face of true solidarity. And to our detractors that insist that this march will never add up to anything,
Boston Red here with Friday Java, a weekly magazine of political theory, polling, and commentary. It is part of the history called people that make up this fascinating journey. We are part of the Obama network. For that, we make no apologies. What we pledge to do is give you the facts on a bridge to history, what body politics is, the most up-to-date theories of political science and psychology. Stay tuned for this incredible ride. Boston Red, peace out.
This is Friday Java on the 12th of January 2018. We got it right this time around. Nonetheless, we'll be covering a variety of topics today, including the Walmart announcement. They are raising their standard hourly there, and they've also closed a number of their Sam Club stores. We'll hear from the people at the University of Virginia. That's Larry Sabato's shop. And we'll look at New York State's lawsuit against 5 major petroleum companies. And we'll just immigration. We'll talk about it, and then DJ Trump's outbursts at the White House. Nothing unusual there. One of the things that people, particularly pundits, have to understand, that DJ Trump is just being a DJ Trump, period. And as far as his various comments on countries, Haiti, etc., he called them, I think, shithole countries or whatever. That has been the dominant theme. It was the dominant theme of his presidential campaign. It's the dominant theme of his administration. There's nothing new there. It's been documented within lawsuits that DJ Trump has an amicus against certain countries and ethnic groups that inhabit those countries. You can see that in various things that he's done. So thus you need to go from there. Now some people were saying, well, it's the line is crossed. No, there's no line crossed in this particular administration. This is just the way that this administration has done their business, whether it be on the issue of immigration, whether it's on the issue of health care, whether it's on the issue of gender equity, etc. There's a long list of various things going on there. And if you look at tax legislation, it's skewed to the corporate interests. That is to be understood. Now the various machinations with Medicaid, letting the states run the Medicaid programs. That, however, though, has been part of the Republican program for over 20 plus years, literally. So you have to separate out what is new with DJ Trump and what is not new with DJ Trump. Now, the tax cuts, those are basic Republican tax cuts. There's no doubt about that. As far as Medicaid is concerned, the social safety net, that stops with the Republican Party. So you need to sort of separate these out. DJ Trump is just literally the fly in the ointment, so to speak, there. As far as Bannon's statements to the author, Mr. Wolf, those are factual statements. You don't need just to take Wolf's transcript of events in the White House. You can look at various other sources been reported over 12 plus months. In fact, Wolf did an interview during the campaign with DJ Trump at his Hollywood house. So he has a long-standing relationship with him. There was a comment on Twitter about Wolf and his East Coast bias. Well, that doesn't mean anything there. And his SAT scores, I was talking to an individual that scored on the verbal part perfectly. Another individual I ran into, these are 10 years apart, that had scored perfect or almost perfect on the math portion. So there are a lot of people around that have scored on SAT. Doesn't mean a whole lot. The world is moving too quickly for that. But as far as Haiti and some of these other countries are concerned, you look at the reason that they're quote-unquote shithole countries. Neocolonialism has done in Haiti. Poverty is done in Haiti. Programs to help Haitians have ended up giving Haitians cholera. It is a failed project. And why is it a failed project? Well, basically speaking, the so-called American foreign policy is a racist foreign policy inspired by Woodrow Wilson. So when you look at many of these countries that have gotten aid and no trade, some of the countries in the generic Africa, that is what they have received, and you have other refugees coming here on special programs. I.e., we had the Cubans. That was a political situation there, that they were allowed in mass because of the anti-communist hysteria. Other types have come in. The Vietnamese have come in. Many of those people, because their families or they were associated with the CIA and American counterintelligence programs. The same way in various other countries in that area, in Laos, in Cambodia, etc. That is the reason they were put in here. People at one time came in El Salvador, now a little different situation in Salvador. These people were threatened with their lives. Many were exterminated by a regime sponsored by the U.S. on the Rios Montt. So in other words, there is a lot of foreign policy considerations there. You have other people that were allowed in, Libyans for instance, before the murder of Colonel Gaddafi. So you have all these people and all these quote-unquote special programs out here that have allowed people, exempted people in, that DJ Trump is ending. But look beyond DJ Trump. This is a condition of modern American capitalism, as what happened at the Walmart enterprise. Today, it illustrates what is going on. Let's move to that one so we can move along here with the illustration. Walmart, this is in the Washington Post, it says it's giving its workers a raise, and then they, of course, close 63 of their Sam's Club stores without letting the workers know. It's the largest private employer in the country, over a million people. Said it plans to raise starting wages there from $9 to $11 an hour. You remember the campaign for 10 that many of us had sponsored, and moving on to actually the campaign for 15. It handed out bonuses ranging from $200 to $1,000. Now, the $1,000, if you've been there 20 years, you could survive that long. Becoming the latest company to give some credit for workers' benefits to recent tax plan. This is a scam. But economists and professionals cast doubt on whether the policy change was the driving force behind the move by Walmart. With the national rate of unemployment being at 4.1, that's a 17-year-old low. There are more jobs opening in retail than at any time since the turn of the century. That's according to big data from the government. It was announced Thursday. Walmart did not mention the great difficulty employers are having finding and retaining workers in what is left of the retail industry. Observers say almost had to raise wages if it wanted to keep in step with peers such as Target. Target has already raised their starting, which late last year raised it to $11 an hour. So in other words, they're paying catch up, and they'll reach $15. That's and there would have been no $15 at Target had not been for the campaign by various trade unions, organizations, and progressive people. Make no doubt about that. From Thomas Cutchin, a professor at MIT Sloan School of Management, I would have been astonished if they had not raised wages. It's impossible to sort out how much of this is because of savings from the tax cut and how much is because of pressure they're receiving from workers and labor groups. The entry of Walmart into the tax reform debate accelerates the contentious discussion over how the tax plan, still only a week old, truly factors into corporate decisions. American Airlines, AT&T, amongst others, have announced these so-called $1,000 bonuses, incidentally, which are tax deductible. Wells Fargo is among a small group that's also pledged a $15 an hour minimum following the tax plan. They were going to be forced to do it anyway. But also Thursday, Walmart expanded its parent-level policy for hourly workers, beginning providing $5,000 in aid to workers adopting children. I don't understand what that's supposed to, but anyway, it offers 6 to 8 weeks of partially paid maternity leave for hourly workers and no maternity leave, no paternity leave. Okay. But it all was not good news. The retail also is closing 63 of the Sam's clubs, affecting thousands of workers. Said in the tweet, 10 relocations will reopen as e-commerce fulfillment centers. So 10 out of 63. The Giant said the pay raises would take effect on the 17th of February. The bonus is paid sometime after this month. It plans a one-time cash bonus to part-time workers, full-time workers. That's ranging from $200 to less than 2 years of service to $1,000 who've been there for 20 years. Today we're investing, are building on investments. We're making this as Macmillan, the CEO or whatever, of Walmart. Since the tax rate was slashed to 21% from 35%. But the problem there was most of these corporations were paying around 22% before the smashing. But Walmart's new $700 million plan paled in comparison to the retailer's 2015 $2.7 billion two-year plan to boost workers' pay, which resulted across the board raises that landed all on one day. That was in 2016. That was when Walmart put their entry-level pay at $10 an hour. Walmart said the wage increases would add $300 million in expenses to its budget for the next fiscal year. The one-time cash bonuses, meanwhile, will cost the company about $400 million, or 0.08% of its annual revenue. For 2016, the company reported $485 to $487 billion in annual revenue on profits of $13.64 billion. Tax will save Walmart $2 billion a year, according to them. The fact is that Walmart's not particularly investing the estimated $2 billion it will receive annually from Trump's tax giveaway to its workers. Keep in mind, of all this is from Randy Peraza, the director of Making Change at Walmart, a campaign run by the Food and Commercial Workers Union. There's nothing but another public relations stunt from Walmart too distant from the reality that they are laying off thousands of workers, and ones who remain will continue to receive low wages, no doubt about that. From Christine Owen, she's the National Employment Labor Project. We fall back. She's executive director there. Described the new benefits as a lowball announcement by Walmart. $11 an hour equals $19 a year for 34 weeks work, which Walmart considers a full-time. This is below the national poverty line for a family of 3. Now, here's Emerald Jens, earns $11 an hour after 7 years at Walmart. Jens, who lives in Gettysburg, PA, said in an email that is more needed from the retailer. One-time bonus I'm getting won't help me long-term. She said we need $15 full-time to support a family. Well, $11 an hour on the 34 is less than $20,000 a year there. Now Walmart's asking workers, this is the latest scheme, talking about a penny pension, as LBJ would say, a chinchy program here. Walmart's newest tactic to in its fight to fight online giant Amazon enlists its workers to deliver online orders on their way home from work. The idea, Walmart executive says, is to cut the cost of the so-called last-minute mile of deliveries when packages are driven to a customer's home, often the most expensive part of the fulfillment project. It just makes sense. We already have trucks moving orders from fulfillment centers to stores for pickups, as according to Mac Larray, the chief executive of Walmart's e-commerce business and the founder of Jet.com, said in a blog the same trucks can be used to bring ship-to-home orders to stores close to the final destination, where participating associates, they don't call them workers, can drive them home. So the company began testing the package delivery program a month ago in 3 stores, 2 in Jersey and 1 in Northwest Arkansas. Workers will be paid extra for voluntary program, offered overtime pay as necessary. They'll make sure they don't get any overtime out of this scam. Is uniquely qualified, Walmart's uniquely qualified, uniquely positioned to be able to offer this. He added that 90% of Americans live within 10 miles of a Walmart. Labor experts say the arrangement is a mashup of sorts between Uber's self-styled gig economy and traditional employment arrangements, raising a number of questions related to workers having to shoulder much of the risks and costs and liability associated there. Are they going to pay? And this is the practical. The practice seems ripe for abuse if the company does not compensate workers fully for their journey. The expense related to gas, car depreciation, potential problems like accidents, tickets, parking expense. That is from Stephanie Luce, a labor professor at City University of New York. Like other gig economy type jobs, there's a potential to benefit workers, but in reality, most of the benefits accrued to the bosses. Earlier this year, Walmart, which last year reported $485 billion in revenue, said it would raise the hourly there to $10, which they did There you go. Some of these people have appeared more than once here. So the company also is partnering with rideshare services, Uber, Lyft, deliver groceries in Phoenix, Denver, and Miami. We consider crowdsourcing is a mechanism of the future, and frankly, as you think about the move to driverless vehicles, they could also make the cost of delivery lower. That is from Scott Price, the Chief Administrative Officer of Walmart International. Inefficient delivery can destroy profitability, no doubt about that. So in other words, Uber and Lyft and all these characters are moving to driverless cars as quickly as they can get there. And in the meantime, they'll use their workers. Because if it's a 10-mile radius around the stores, the workers, they presume, live somewhere around there also, so they can take the groceries to grandma or whomever. And it's a 10 or 15-minute ride, so they're not out of very much money. So the worker has to load the merchandise into the car, take it there, and maybe or maybe not they will receive some type of gas mileage. If they're at some of these stores where they have actually gas there, maybe they'll give them a gallon or liter or whatever. Excuse me. Amazon is speeding up deliveries. The Seattle-based company has leased a fleet of 40 cargo jets and has developed an Amazon-branded trucking fleet. It also has created Amazon Flex, an on-demand network of drivers similar to Uber or Lyft. So in other words, they all are moving to the cheap way of doing this. This is to be alerted to. Now, when you first start out the program, inefficiencies, as when you start anything out, occur. But at the same time, they have to move here, and they will get it down. If there aren't enough workers to do it, then of course they'll use UPS, FedEx. I will fill in, and they didn't count the U.S. Postal Service there. So in other words, what is happening at these stores, more and more going to things like self pickup services, where you literally pick up the merchandise at the store, and it's ready. The workers pack that, so there'll be less customers coming there. We already talked about DJ Trump. Enough of this fool. DJ Trump, he's always doing something, period. Shock and anger after video shows a dazed woman put out in the cold of the Baltimore hospital. The University of Baltimore Medical Center apologized for what it described as a failure of basic empathy and compassion after a woman wearing only a thin was left alone at a bus stop outside the facility. It was the latest incident of dropping patients that sparked outrage across the country. So that is it. I also see an article here. Most newspapers and TV radio stations declined to censor vulgar language from DJ Trump. And we'll get the reaction here of Haiti and various African countries to DJ Trump's here's what my shithole looks like. African countries and Haiti react there. It did not take an advanced degree, even a complete fluency in English, to understand Trump. Assertion that Haiti, El Salvador were African countries. The president's remarks, well, El Salvador, the news comment quickly shot to the top of the news sites. DJ Trump insults El Salvador. Haitians took to Twitter to share pictures of their country, green hills, palm trees, etc., and sunsets. Haiti's ambassador to the U.S. condemned the statement. Didn't really matter with the Trump administration. In the spirit of the Haitian people, we feel that this statement, if it were made, the president was either misinformed, miseducated about Haiti. Haiti was not. In Austin, a 28-year-old Haitian who said his temporary protected status expires a week, said he was not surprised by his comments. The president did not hid who he is. He said, I would say I was very angry in normal circumstances, but right now my concern is keeping my job, the man said, added and not to be named. Vicente Fox, he's the former president of Mexico, a harsh critic of Trump, wrote on Twitter, your mouth is the foulest asshole in the world. With what authority do you proclaim who is welcome in the U.S. and who is not? Greatness is built on diversity, or have you forgotten your immigrant background, Donald? So, various people here, including the representative from Utah. Her parents were from Haiti. So, in other words, not much new here. When you start talking about what DJ Trump has done lately here. Poor woman in a gown. I see we can get a picture of her thrown out in the cold in Baltimore. That speaks of humankind's inhumanity to humankind. And this video, I guess, was put up here. And this woman, the man huddled up with a camera in his hand as a black-clad security guard walked towards him, then past him. One of them was pushing an empty wheelchair. So the woman was put out there in her nightgown. This kind of behavior is, I think, both illegal and immoral. That's from Arthur Kaplan, the founder of the Division of Medical Ethics at the New York University Medical School. He's an ethicist. They need a lot of law enforcement. At a news conference the afternoon, the hospital's chief was going to investigate what happened. He said it represented a retching departure from widely respected medical institution there in Prince George County. The suit filed in Fairfax County Court alleges that Donald Paul Ryberg came... this is someone else here. Ryberg, then 46-year-old diabetic, had a history of alcohol abuse and so forth and so on. The day when the temperature was there, the complaint alleged that Ryberg was so weak he couldn't stand up when the hospital staff discharged him. So, there's various stories of people being literally thrown out into the cold. Nothing new happening there. It is the inhumanity to people, and we'll see a lot more of this before it is over. So nothing to get excited. Trump cancels London visit to dedicate new American embassy. Didn't know they had one there. Citing a bad deal to sell and relocate the building. Evidently, he's also sold the Norwegians some F-52 planes. But they only exist in computer games? What in the hell is that? There's more lunacy coming out of here every day. It caused a stir of his announcement the U.S. had delivered F-52 fighter jets to Norway. Was it a secret advanced capability there? Neither. It turned out the F-52 is a fictional jet only available to fly if you're a gamer. Oh, this is this Call of Duty scheme right here. God. The sale of the fictional plane alongside the Prime Minister Sodberg at the White House on Wednesday. We started delivering F-52s and F-35 jets, he said. We have a total of 52. Trump was reading from a statement. It appeared he combined the figure 52 planes with the F. Oh, so much for lunacy. Anyway, let us move on here to Dr. Larry Sabato, and then we'll talk about Jerry Brown's legacy here. The governors judged by the big states, 2018. This is by, again, called Klondike. Key points in the article: Democrats should end the year with more governorships than they hold now. One reasonable way to measure Democrats' success is whether they get into the 20s. They only have 16 now. The Republicans are on the defensive in too many states to realistically expect to net seats. They now have 33 and would represent, if they stay in the 30s, a great thing for them. These are small states, so two of the states which Republicans have the best chance to score takeovers in Alaska and Connecticut. I'm not sure why in Connecticut. Moving open seats in Maine from a toss-up to lean Democrat. That's a cook pot in Maine, and to add at least 2 net governorships in Maine and New Mexico. Let's see. So we look at some of these states here. The governors, the gubernatorial roster continues to be the largest the party has enjoyed in the post-era of the Second War. Now, there are holding Virginia by the biggest margin there. We all know about Virginia, with Democrats picking up the Garden State. Jim Justice there switched parties. He's now a Republican. That didn't matter very much. While Democrats hold 16, an independent Bill Walker out in Alaska. Question is whether the Democrats will add more seats to their gubernatorial stable. Is not, but how many will they add? Well, that's an interesting point there, and we'll get down to that. They currently hold 6 governorships in the 10 most populous states. The 2 most populous states, California and Texas, look like easy holds for the respective Democrats and Republicans. Now, the 4th largest state for either North Carolina. The 9th most populous is the only one on the ballot this year. Democrats captured it in 2016. While Georgia, the 8th biggest, is competitive, but the Republicans are favored to hold Georgia. That's a developing story there. That leaves 5 others. Florida, Illinois, the Democrats should get. Michigan, I'm not sure what. In Ohio, Pennsylvania, Republicans hold all but the Keystone State right now. There are 3 toss-ups, while Republicans started the year with a modest edge in Ohio, and Democrats a modest edge in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a command and control state. They should be able to do that. Now, if you look across the nation, we have old Charlie Baker and Phil Scott in Vermont. They shouldn't be there. They are both favored next year, as that's an unfortunate situation in an election year in the Commonwealth. Charlie Baker should be toast, and that's just basic weakness in the Democratic Party in Massachusetts. Anyway, it's possible Republicans could actually sweep New England governorships this year. It's not likely, but Maine is there. Connecticut is open seat after the unpopular governor, and that's unfortunate. Daniel Malloy opted against running again. Of course, a lot of people that work in New York are there. Next door in Rhode Island, Jenny Raimondo has been hit both from the left and the right, but Republicans may not have a top-tier candidate there. And, of course, Rima's free spending outside. In Florida, Scott's wanting to run there. Como, well, that's not even a question in New York. We have old Darrell Issa. He's gone. Ed Royce, he's also gone. These are Republicans out in California. Wheelchair Abbott is still wheeling around in Texas, although Democrats hope that either the former Dallas County Sheriff Lope Valdez, or a businessman named Andrew White. He's the son of Mark White. Remember, Mark White was a former Texas governor there. The Senate race between Ted Lyon Cruz and Beto O'Rourke may help turnout there in Texas. Tom Wolf, he's governor in Pennsylvania, does not have a dynamic approval rate. It's not clear if the Republicans candidate will be able to push him out. In Maryland, this Larry Hogan character should have never been elected, whose sky-high approval numbers probably masked his vulnerability when he faces an electorate that votes the president. Well, this has been brought up before. Was effectively a tax revolt against the then outgoing governor, poor old Martin O'Malley. And the other night, we couldn't even think of poor Martin O'Malley's name. He based it upon his former mayor of Baltimore, and there was a rebellion in Baltimore, and he was a toast. So we'll see who leads a popular poll, solid by Maryland poster Patrick Gomez. So there's some people that have been jealous, of course, is running there. Gomez found Allfree trailing Hogan by double digits, but the incumbent was slightly short of 50. I think as people get to know Ben Jealous, Jen Jealous has a very good chance of doing something there. In Ohio, DeWine, the Attorney General, is a likely nominee for the open seat. And let's see, Horster take on the lieutenant governor's deal there. We have Senator Brown, Mandel, there starts to rematch an unsuccessful 2012 campaign. Our rating in, this is the crystal ball, leans Democrat there in Ohio. Mr. Brown is from the Appalachian part, incidentally, of Ohio. DeWine has her ticket, still faces a primary. Lieutenant Governor there, Mary Taylor, is running, and she'll pick a running mate on Wednesday. Oh, Richard Cordray, who had been in Washington in the past, has several years director of the Financial Protection Agency. He should have stayed there. And let's see who else here. Other candidates, former Dennis Kucinich, a two-time presidential candidate who only recently a representative. Kucinich is likely is taking the place of another. Wait a minute here. Oh, recently, a commentator appears to enter the race. So one former Northern Ohio representative, Kucinich, is likely taking the place of another. Sutton, a state Supreme Court Justice Bill Sutton was one of only two Democrats nationwide. He offered several comments on his sexual history. I'm not sure here. We've heard rumors that O'Neill, who possesses a golden last name for Ohio, three of the candidates there have been in the race much longer than the three previous mentioned candidates. Dayton's mayor there, Nan Whitley, a state senator named Joe Slavina, and a former representative there, Connie Pitchard. Don't know. So DeWine versus Cordray for the governor. It would be a rematch of the 2010 battle for Attorney General, where DeWine beat than the incumbent Cordray. Oh, that's right, he was there. By a little over a percentage point. Michigan, up in the air there. Gateway Snyder is not running. Will face a credible opponent in Lieutenant Governor Brian Caudley as a Republican. There's already a toss-up. Another state attorney general there, Bill Smetty, is a likely Republican nominee. Former minority leader Gretchen Wintermeyer is likely the one to emerge on the Democratic side there. So we don't know. A lot of that's also going to go into Republicans in the White House. They may regret the decision by some big-name possibilities like Gary Peters and Representative Kildee. And Mayor Duggan to take a pass on the race. Duggan is the mayor in Detroit. So into the Chicago race, Renner's the first-term governor approval rating slightly underwater. It should be more than slightly underwater. J.B. Pitker doesn't prove much of a contrast with the incumbent, but both are uber rich, no doubt about that. Again, incumbent governors do not often lose in post-war eras. About 3/4 win election. Losing the race would be a nightmare for Democrats. If Remus survives, he could force a deal with the Democratic legislature to weaken the state's Democratic U.S. House gerrymandering, which said is not as extreme in the Democratic direction as the Republican map in Ohio and Pennsylvania. Boss Walker, unburdened by term limits, is seeking a third term. I thought they had term limits in Wisconsin. I guess they don't. He won regular elections in 2010, 2014, and a recall in 2012. His three elections are very similar. He won between 52 and 53% in all of them. The Democrats' best was 46-47. So like Ohio, this may be a toss-up. Long before, but not yet. Wisconsin, the Democrats have to get someone that can run a race. It's that simple. Tommy Evans, the recall lieutenant governor nominee, is the firefighter. Remember him, Mr. Mitchell, and State Representative Dana Walters, and the liberal mayor just entered the race this week, Paul Slojan. He's out of Madison. It's very difficult to come out of there. So the final competition in Midwest governorships is in Minnesota. The former governor there, Tim Pawlenty, could still run for his old job for the new Senate race. If he runs for governor, he would move the gubernatorial race from lean Democrat to a toss-up. If he runs for Senate, he would probably still have the appointed Senator Smith as a small favor. I'm kind of doubtful of that. Smith's in trouble in Minnesota. So Republicans should be fine in defending Ricketts in Nebraska and an open seat out in Idaho, South Dakota, etc. Kansas is a hard Republican hold, although the Republicans have been around there forever. Pat Roberts, remember his running against Orman, and voter registry might look at dislike for the outgoing governor Sam Brownback, who got beat it out as quick as he could go. Brownback seems certain to leave the governorship early to take an appointment from the president, giving the lieutenant governor a weak form incumbency there. But Brownback's nomination has stalled. The Democrats have a credible nominee in Laura Kelly, the state House minority leader, and Jim Ward, a former ag commissioner. They're there. And are the former Wichita Mayor Carl Brewer. Oklahoma is a long shot for Democrats, although Democrats have put up a few strong special elections there. Mary Phelan has weak numbers. Lieutenant Governor Todd Lamb is probably the likely Republican nominee, and the former Attorney General Drew Edmondson, who narrowly lost the gubernatorial race in 2010, will probably test the waters there. Democrats might have a better shot if Edmondson did not support abortion rights. Remember, as noted above, Republicans have successfully won some dark blue states, partially by finding candidates in those states on issues like abortion rights. Democrats might want to follow the thing of John Bell Edwards, who is anti-abortion. Well, I suppose they'll find an anti-abortion candidate. Does it really matter in a state like Oklahoma? Hell no. Late Jerry Pippin used to talk about that. The people that got the abortions there were Baptist women. The only elected incumbent running in the South, Asha Hutchinson in Arkansas, who's breezed past the re-election, faces an annoyance in terms of very hard-hitting primary challenge there. We've talked about, not much about McMaster in South Carolina, but Kay Ivey, she's in Alabama. Judge Moore may run against her. And what else do we have left here? Democrats in Nevada are also trying to win the governorship for the first time since 1994. Adam Laxalt, a somewhat accidental winner, was aided by a collapse in Democratic turnout. But Nevada's expert, John Ralston, sees him as with a possible general election edge because of the possibility that a strong Democratic candidate could get tripped up in the primary by commission colleague, the more liberal Chris. I don't want to even try to pronounce his name. Anyway, in New Mexico, top Democrats there pick up opportunities in open seat battles there. In Colorado, another place where Democrats are more bullish after Virginia. Virginia is a much more African American, while Colorado is a Latino. The Democratic primary leader is former State Senator Mike Johnston, Lieutenant Governor Lyon there, Diane Lyon, are credible candidates too. The Attorney General Cynthia Kaufman, the State Treasurer, well, it just goes on and on here. The Democrats hope to get Doug Robinson is a nephew of Willard Romney. He's also running. So too is former Representative Tancredo, the anti-immigrant bomb thrower there. Republicans have won. This is in Oregon since 1982. They see this year's contest as a dark horse pickup opportunity. Kate Brown is seeking a full term after winning a special election in 2016. A somewhat unimpressive 7 points. And let's see who else is here. The state representative Bocher is probably the impressive opponent who caught the eye of the NACI founder Phil Knight, who gave Bocher a $500,000 contribution. It would be a rematch. She defeated him in the 2012 Secretary of State election. Well, Ms. Brown has got probably a pretty good chance out there. And let's see, in Arizona, Doug Ducey should be fine, although heavy Democrat investment in the state's U.S. Senate race and few House races there. And, you know, why Democrats look like their Democratic competitive Democratic primary between David Egg and Colleen Hibiscus. Remember Colleen Hibiscus? We conclude with with probably the most confounding race of them all, Alaska, where Independent Bill Walker is running for a second term. The state faces economic problems tied to the low price of petrol, which is sort of returned there. And for your erase, former Mark Blodgett. Remember him? I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. He hasn't ruled out a bid. He would likely split the vote to benefit the Republican nominee. Given liability elsewhere, the Republicans take over in Alaska is probably needed to keep them over the 30. So that is a story there. Let me just finish this up with Jerry Brown. Legend there will be a $6.1 billion budget surplus in California. Jerry Brown appears poised to exit office next year with a top political priority and in a hand free from massive budget deficits, burdened by by a tax increase passed on his administration's strong economy. Brown said Wednesday that the state is projected a $6.1 billion surplus for next year, which the fiscal year begins the 1st of July. The governor proposed stalking most of the money away in a rainy day fund, very wise decision. He pushed in 2014 nearly 70% of the state's projected revenue, about $135 billion next fiscal year, is derived from personal income tax, according to the governor. The state's fiscal health is especially critical as it faces a marathon of challenges, natural disasters, housing shortages, changes to the federal regulations. California has had 10 recessions since World War II, and we must prepare for the 11th. Let's not blow it now. Mr. Brown has been preaching frugality for his years. He kicked off one past budget talk with Aesop's fables about the 30 and lazy grasshoppers. He took office in 2011 with a $27 million budget deficit and drastically smashed spending. In 2012, he started his governorship on a tax increase that voters approved that year and reauthorized in 2016. His spending plans for 2018 call for $131 billion general fund spending, including special funds and bonds, which are pools of restricted money that can only be used for specific projects. The governor's budget document marks the start of roughly 6 months of negotiation with the Democratic-controlled legislature. They must approve their budget by the 15th of June. On Wednesday, Republicans called the governor to return some of the surplus to voters, saying they were overtaxed. Well, they don't care about that. We do not have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. This is some guy named Fong. State officials and economists are planning the 18-19 budget cycle has been particularly difficult this year. There are, they say, state financing a notable volatile period, facing a notable volatile period on the federal tax problem. I think there is more financial uncertainty between Washington and Sacramento in the past, as Jerry Nicholsberger, director of the University of California, Los Angeles, Anderson forecast. It's a leading forecast there. We won't talk about what some state senators said, but Republican Governor Swartz defeated Davis in a recall election, but was too consumed with deficits as the state coffers were plummeted by the last recession. Mr. Brown's two most immediate predecessors were consumed by the state budget woes at the end of their tenure. This Gray Davis character was recalled from office. That was in 2003. And a recession and energy crisis, controversial cuts led to his popularity to sink. One thing the governor doesn't like is to preside over a homogeneous budget, because people do blame themselves, Brown said, and for that reason, if none other, we are going to keep this study going there. I said, what I said, hemorrhaging budget, yeah. So that is basically it there, and we need to do the sports. We got Governor Brown, a little over, but on most of the channels you will get all of this. And on some channels, well, you'll run up a little bit short, but we wanted to get everything in. We'll now do the National Basketball Association. Incidentally, a programming note here. The week that was will be at its regular time on Saturday morning, and Sunday will be special programming. We'll be looking at King Day 2018. The official holiday is on a Monday, the 15th. Of course, we had the Monday morning quarterback. But we'll talk about Dr. King, what Dr. King means to today, because many of the issues that Dr. King was fighting, white supremacy, voter suppression, all of those things are alive and well in America 2018. The Celtics were in Philadelphia. Celtics 114-103 for the 76ers. The Cavaliers were at the Raptors. Raptors won 33-99. The Clippers were at the Kings. Clippers 121-115. And finally, the Spurs were in Los Angeles. The Lakers finally won a game 93-18. On to the National Hockey Association, and my fascination with some of the names of these teams that didn't exist in the old days when we followed the Pittsburgh Penguins. That was the early 70s. When hockey was hockey. Oh, well. Sometimes we have to say something here. Anyway, the Blue Jackets were at the Sabres. The final last Sabres 3-1. The Hurricanes were at the Capitals. Hurricanes 3-1. That was that final. And the Flames and Lightning. Flames 5-1 in that contest. And Tampa Bay Lightning. Oh, well. Enough. Now we have the Army and the and the Golden Knights of Vegas in a tassel over copyrights. Like we couldn't do any more. Anyway, have a nice weekend, everyone. For those that are in the parts of the U.S. that are above 32, as one would say, this is January. Good day.